Hello, and welcome to, I'm just checking I've got my volumes right, and welcome, yes, I wanted to be a bit louder, and welcome to our weekly Parsha Shiur. This week's Parsha is, of course, Teitze, which tells the story of the Jewish soldier. The young Jewish soldier goes out to war, finds a beautiful non-Jewish woman, and wants to bring her home to be his wife. The Alshich here, with his laser-sharp analysis of the text, is going to show us some remarkably interesting insights. However, I should start by saying that if you would like to sponsor this shiur, you are more than welcome to. Somebody who watches the shiur regularly approached me 2 days ago to say, why do you say that it should commemorate somebody who passed away? Why don't you say instead that it is, you can sponsor the shiur for a bar mitzvah or another simcha apart from some sad occasion? And I suppose it's because I'm not very good at this sort of thing. But you can. So if you would like to sponsor this week's shiur or next week's shiur, I should say, this week's shiur is because Brocha Bas Shmuel got engaged. And Shmuel was very happy about his daughter's engagement and wanted this shiur to be sponsored, that his daughter's engagement should flower into a marriage very soon. It should be full of happiness, success, little pattering feet, and a life of avodas Hashem. So indeed, bracha Bas Shmuel from me, Mazel Tov on your simcha. If you would like to sponsor the shiur for any good reason at all, then there is the card, yy@rabbiyyy.com, who is me, yy@rabbiyyy.com, for a happy occasion, a commemoration, or whatever you like. And we'll be very happy to dedicate the shiur for whoever you choose. Right, so let's look at this week's Parsha. Now, before we start the Parsha and the Alshich's insights here, I have to tell you a very, very important principle. And the important principle, I'm not sure if we've mentioned it already, but it is the fact that the theme of the Parshas reflects the time of the year in which the Parsha occurs. Very often when it comes to the Parshas that come to during the 3 weeks in Tisha B'Av, they're appropriate, the Hebrew is matim, they fit, they match the sad time of the year. Now, of course, we're in the weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, the days of judgment, in which we are supposed to be focusing on remedying our fractured relationship, or if the relationship's not necessarily fractured, but tarnished perhaps, relationship with Hashem. Don't forget that he tells us to call him Avinu Malkeinu. Yes, it's the day of judgment, and that's a scary time. Malkeinu, the king, sitting in judgment. But before you call him or think about Hashem as Malkeinu, remember he's Avinu, he's our father. And the very first Rosh Hashanah was the one, says the Medrash, not in which Hashem judged Adam Arishon to find him guilty. It was the first occasion where Hashem judged a human being to find him not guilty, to acquit him. Remember, he's Avinu before he's Malkeinu. He's our father before he's our king. And the theme of this Parsha very, very nicely reflects that idea. So let me share my screen with you and let's just explore what the words of the Sedra are. So here we go. Move that out of the way. Bring that to the fore so you can all see it. And here we go. So let's look very carefully. Now, again, remember, every word counts, particularly when we're analyzing through the lens of the Alshich signs. And let's see. When you go out to war against your enemy, the nosnu, Hashem Elokecha, and Hashem gives into your hands v'yadecha, the enemy, and you take captives. Fine. V'ra'isa b'shivya, and you see amongst the captives, Eishes Yefas Ter, a woman of beautiful form, a woman of beautiful appearance. And you desire her. And you take her as a wife. And you take her into your house, or rather you have it's actually a commandment. Then you will have to take her into your house. The gilka is Russia. And then her hair has to be shaved off. But also as Tziporneha, then she has to grow her fingernails. And of course, we're not talking manicure. There's no word manicure here. It grows. And as everybody knows, when your fingernails grow, I usually keep mine very small for this very reason. There's nothing more unpleasant than seeing a half moon of black line, which shows that some dirt or other substances have collected underneath the nail. So she's got to grow her nails. So that won't look so nice. They're no longer manicured. The Hesra is seamless Shivya Menaho, and the beautiful dress, the dress of her captivity, we'll explore that shortly, that's replaced by some old shmata, some old, I don't know, dress that some woman would wear for doing housework. But Yoshua the second shall live in your house. A boss says will be about and about Simon shall cry for mother and father for a whole month. So those are the three requirements. So again, hair cut off, nails grown. Sorry, 4 requirements. Beautiful dress replaced by some old shmata, and crying for mother and father for an entire month. And after that, tova leha, then you may take her as a wife, but also live with her as a wife. And she's your wife. And then it goes on to say, if after that process you don't want to marry her, and she goes to complete freedom. You have no ties and no claim on her whatsoever. Because of law made above, and you're not allowed to say, oh well, I can sell her as a slave to the local slave market in the time of the slavery. No, this woman goes to complete freedom. That's the parsha. So here are some of the questions the Alshich asks. Now he asks lots of questions, but let's see if we can focus on just this particular bit. It says, when you go out to war against your enemy, and Hashem gives you victory and you take captives. That was our first pasuk. And you see amongst the captives a woman of beautiful appearance, whom you desire. And then it says you can take her as a wife, but there's a process. First of all, you got to take her into your house. And then the process is the Gilcha Asrasha. So her hair has got to be removed. Now, all of the commentators say that the reason why the hair has to be cut off is because hair is a woman's crowning glory. There's a medrash, and this is cited by Mesil Shishorim at the beginning of his classic work, that when Hashem created the first woman who was Chava, when she brought him to Adam to be his wife for that wedding, which he, as it were, Hashem himself officiated at, before he brought her to meet her chosen, and he did her hair. He prepared her hair, as of course a woman on a wedding day has her hair made beautiful, because, says the Medrash, a woman's crowning glory or beauty, her ultimate beauty is her hair. So this hair, which is all beautiful and all attractive, that is removed. And that's easy to conceive why this would happen. Now Rashi says, when we come to the clothing, which we have very shortly, which is going to be removed and replaced by some old shmata, he says that in those days, in that world, in that time, then when soldiers in the non-Jewish world went out to battle, then their wives made themselves look beautiful, either for the returning triumphant husband, or equally for the person who killed that husband, who will not now return. Because you see, in the ancient world, they believed that when their soldiers went out, their nation went to battle and war against another nation. Not only were the soldiers fighting against the other soldiers, but their gods were fighting against the other people's gods too. If you lost, that was a simple indicator to you that you should really have been worshipping the other guy's gods all the time. After all, they beat you. They've got more powerful gods, soldiers, as a consequence, and strategy as a consequence, powerful weapons. Their ultimate weapon is their gods. You were a fool not to have been worshipping those gods in the first place. So therefore, the women made themselves look beautiful to be taken by an enemy soldier. This is going to be an investment towards, a more successful life than the previous one, which had foolishly been worshipping whoever your tribe or your nation's gods were. So therefore, she has made herself look as beautiful as possible in order to be taken as a captive, to be attractive to a Jewish soldier in this case. So therefore, her hair, the thing that is most attractive to a woman, has to be shaved off when you take her into your house, which the Torah says you can do. It doesn't say you're not allowed to take this woman. It says you're allowed to take her, but there's a certain number of things you have to do first. First of all, that beautiful hair that made her so attractive to you, that has to go. And then those fingernails, all polished and smooth and nail polished, I suppose, or something along those lines. No, that's changed. Now, not so attractive. It's obvious here the Torah is endeavoring to undo or take away or remove the factors that made her attracted to you in the first place. And then the clothing, of course, the beautiful dress that she wears. Rashi says she wears a beautiful dress to be as attractive as possible. Then that's removed and replaced by something which is very mundane. And then she's got to cry. So you can do all that. I can conceive, says the Alshich, you can conceive that all that is achievable. You can shave off her hair, whether she wants it or not. You can take away manicure implements so her fingernails can't be trimmed. You can make her take off that shmata, that beautiful dress, and replace it with shmata. But there's the fourth one, which is a bit of a puzzle. And that is to say, she's got to sit in her house and cry for her mother and for her father for an entire month. How can you engineer that? Asks the Alshich. The other three, you can force her, or you can force onto her. You can't force her to cry for her mother and her father. I remember when I was a university student in Glasgow, then I had a vacation job working, selling books in a non-Jewish bookstore called Grant's on Union Street, if I remember correctly. And there was a book that was sold at the time, and it was called, and I'm not making this up, you can check this and see, The Shiksa's Guide to Getting a Jewish Husband. The Shiksa's Guide to Getting a Jewish Husband. It was a little thin book. It was obviously a humorous book. And it had all sorts of instructions for non-Jewish women how to get a Jewish husband. And I seem to remember it starts off by saying, in the introduction, everybody knows that Jews make better husbands than non-Jews. They've got far fewer, smaller incidents of alcoholism. Physical abuse and beating up wives is much less, and generally they earn more, so they're a better catch. This is how to get one. And it all sorts of chapters about how to master the art of the Jewish woman's guilt trip, and various other funny things like this. And it was also extremely funny. However, even though it's really funny, but most humor is based on reality. And the reality in this particular case is, it's not such a joke. Jews do generally, if we're going into stereotypes, make better husbands, or make good husbands, let's do it that way and be politically correct. They make good husbands. So if her philosophy is that I should really have been worshipping the other guy's gods, the conquerors, the victors' gods in the first place, and these particular victors have to be Jews who make good husbands, then maybe being taken as a captive by a Jewish soldier is the best thing that ever happened to this woman. Maybe her husband, maybe her father, after all, we're talking in societies where burning a first child to the gods was common practice. At the time of the Chumash, there is a type of avodah zarah, molech, which the Torah talks about that you're not allowed to do, taking your first child into the idolatrous priest, and he will burn it to the gods as a sacrifice. So this is not nice times and not nice people. So she might have been abused sexually by her father, treated terribly by her husband. These are not nice places and nice people. So maybe being taken by a Jewish husband, that's the best thing that ever possibly happened to her. And the joke of the book, this is how to get a Jewish husband, becomes a reality. So how can you guarantee that she's going to cry for her mother and for her father for an entire month? As I say, it might be a celebration for her. Just it's the best thing that could have happened. So those are the four questions which we're going to ask. The Alshich starts by saying something which is more than intriguing. And he quotes the Chovos Levovos, one of my favorite of all the classic Jewish books. And I said to you last week, I translated the Shara B'tochen of the Chovos Levovos. I called it Rufos Lev. And really, it's an essential book to have on a Jewish bookshelf, because I will grab one bookshelf behind. Because this book, oops, wrong way around. This book, that's my version of it, which is a new translation with commentary. This is the book that Jews generally turn to when they're in trouble, when things are going wrong. It'd be better to get these ideas into our hearts and into our mind before things go wrong, so that when they go wrong, they don't hurt nearly as much. So anyway, so the author of, this is just one part of it that I translated, of the Chovos Levovos, he says an interesting thing, and I think this is worthwhile reading to you, so let me just do precisely that. He says, Me'ish, the Hobbes of Hobbes tells a story. Me'ish Porish asher holach l'kabel p'nei Chayil Alexandrus. There was a pious and religious Jew who was walking along the road one day and bumped into a part of the army of Alexander the Great, who were returning from having successfully conquered a city which was thought to be impregnable, unconquerable, and they had succeeded. Now, if you know anybody who's ever been in a war, you will know that the emotions run very, very high in warfare. And the exhilaration of having achieved what they have achieved must have been really quite amazing. And so basically, they come back from this fight and they are over the moon. And Alexander's soldiers are shouting in their victory. And this rabbi walking past them says, "What are you celebrating?" I said, "What do you mean we're celebrating? Have you heard the city of," whatever the city was? I'm not a classical historian, so I can't speculate. We conquered it. Nobody thought it could fall, and we took it. Is that all? So, I mean, is that all? I thought it would be an impressive victory, said the rabbi to the soldiers. Do you mean not an impressive? This is the most incredible victory in history. No, that's nothing. What do you mean it's nothing, said one of the soldiers to this rabbi. Name something that would be a bigger victory. So, well, that's very simple. The victory over your Yetzer Hara. The victory over the ultimate enemy of any human being, which is that voice inside your head that tries to get you to do things you shouldn't do, or not do things that you should do. If you can beat that, that's impressive. And there's another thing, well, I'll read this bit to you. Because truly, he says, if you win a war, if you win a battle in a war, you didn't really win it. We say every morning in our tefillas, Hashem ish malchama Hashem shemo. In the famous Shiur, the song of Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu sang, and the Jewish people repeated after the Egyptian army was drowned, trying to kill them and pursue them and kill them at Kriyas Yamsuf at the split of the Red Sea. When he sings that, we say there, Hashem ish malchama Hashem shemo. Hashem decides victories, who wins a war, and human history. If we stay with Greece, from, of course, the famous Battle of Thermopylae, with the 300 Spartans and others. Allies held off an entire Persian army for a few days. A famous battle. To many others, like America being defeated by Vietnam, a tiny country. Even though they won every single battle, they lost the war. History is full of smaller, inferior forces winning enormous battles and enormous wars in the face of overwhelming odds. Because Hashem decides who wins. So, okay, so that's not really your victory. If you won a victory, it's because Hashem wanted you to win the victory. There's a bigger battle, and that battle is the battle that you fight against the Yetzer Hara, because Hashem doesn't help you in the same way. That is meant to be your battle. That's meant to be your fight. And the Alshich goes on and says something else. And it's a particularly difficult battle, because the purpose in fighting the other person, in this case the Yetzer Hara, is one in which you've got your arm literally tied behind your back. You're fighting with only one arm. See, he wants to kill you. My Rosh Yeshiva of Lib Gerbes said, if you want to see the power of the Yetzer Hara and how strong that is, think of the next time, or the last time perhaps, you were in a very tall building and you looked over the edge. What thought came into your mind? Yes, that thought. Jump. The Yetzer Hara, which is internal and part of us, is so powerful, it actually wants you to destroy yourself. That's how powerful that is. So that's quite a battle. He wants to destroy you, but you don't want to destroy him. The Shema says, you've got to serve Hashem b'chol levavcha, with your Yetzer Hara and your Yetzer Tov. With your Yetzer Hara, yes, with your Yetzer Hara. You're supposed to make the Yetzer Hara submit and utilize it and use it for positive purposes, not for negative purposes. So therefore, he wants to destroy you, you don't want to destroy him. He says it's very similar to a little boy, maybe just 13 or 14, and he sees a great city. In there is a famous king who's fought hundreds of battles. He's known for his strategy, he's known for his brilliance and more. And he knows every single alley alleyway and every single inch of that city inside out. And he's got soldiers helping him. Your job is not to kill him. Your job is to get into the city, and you've got to somehow or other defeat him and make him your servant. You've got to become the king. That area, which was under his control, has now got to become under your control. If somebody was to propose such a mission to you, you would have just walked away. Well, I'm afraid that's the mission every single one of us has. So let's see if we can go back to our Alshich here. Let's think what we said. Teitze when you go out to war against your enemy, and you see amongst them an extremely beautiful woman, and remember, she's make herself ultimately as beautiful as it possibly be in order to seduce the soldier. Hashem's reaction could be that when you have been successful and I've saved your life, this is how you repay me? Well, that's not what Hashem's reaction is. But if you pause for a second and just consider if somebody who you've done a lot for, I'm sure that everybody watching this, that there must be somebody in your life who fits into that category. Somebody whom you've done a lot for, you've helped enormously, and they turn around and betray you, stab you in the back, slap you in the face, and whichever metaphor you want to use, then how do you feel? And this is quite a repayment. I mean, after all, says the Alshich, consider, after the battle, how must that soldier have felt? I mean, in those days, warfare was a bloody and horrible business. It wasn't a missile that came from some drone. 1 second people are alive, they're dead. No, this is a battlefield with hundreds or thousands of soldiers waving their swords or their spears and banging them on their shields in the face, the psychological warfare, in the face of the enemy troops, making a very simple message by waving that sword. Any second now I'm running across this field and I'm going to try and chop bits of your body off, preferably your head. It was a horrible business warfare in those days. It was just a butcher shop, an enormous wholesale butcher shop, with you, of course, as the potential meat. Anyway, so basically, after the war, how must that soldier have felt? He has survived, and of course, I don't think any soldier would be particularly confident in this close quarter combat that you're going to sit with. He survived. The soldier moves away from the battlefield in which there are dying people screaming their heads off in agony and body parts lying all over the place. And he goes to a hillside, and there he is in tranquility and peace. Wow, I've survived. He must have felt great about himself. He must have felt enormously happy. And now the noise of that battlefield over there, it's now disappeared. He's now sitting there. And he expresses his enormous gratitude to Hashem for the fact the first non-Jewish woman who was very beautiful that he takes, that he sees, he wants to take as a wife. How would you feel? How would you feel? How do you think Hashem feels? Well, how Hashem feels is, you did that to me after everything I did for you and I saved your life. How can I get you back again? What caused you? What caused your Yetzer Hara to twist your perspective, to make you forget me, to make you forget what I've done for you, to forget our relationship, to forget I'm your father and you're my son. And every father wants the son back again, or the daughter back again. So how am I going to get you back? Let's examine the features and the factors that led you to being lost to me in the first place. Okay, so first of all, let's look at this woman. She was extremely beautiful. I get that. So let's make sure that we're going to reverse the effects of that incredible beauty. Her hair, her crowning glory, that's shaved off. And women simply don't look good when they have no hair. In fact, I remember once in Manchester in England where I used to live, I was giving a shiur and talking about this very issue. And I said, a woman doesn't look good without any hair. I didn't know that sitting in the front row, the lady there, who was wearing a beautiful wig, which there was no way of knowing it wasn't real, had just come out for her first event, having recovered from chemotherapy, where of course she had lost all her hair. And of course I felt dreadful afterwards, but she found it actually very funny, and she knew it to be true anyway. despite the fact I felt horrible about having slipped up in that way. But of course, a woman's beauty is there. So let's get rid of that. Now she doesn't look so good. And fingernails, all beautifully sculpted? No. Now it's got a nice black half moon around it. The beautiful dress. Well, that beautiful dress that suggests this Jewish. And remember, the levels of tznius, of interaction between the genders in those days was really very, very intense. He probably had seen very little of women and girls, but she's not only just wearing a beautiful dress that enhances her beauty, it would enhance her beauty in a sexual way too. Tznius is only really a uniquely Jewish concept. That is obviously going to be reversed as well. The beautiful dress, the seductive clothes, are now going to be removed and replaced. But then we have the other problem, the problem we discussed before. All that can be engineered. How do you make sure she cries for her mother and her father? The Alshich says something very interesting. And I'll have to share the screen with you so that you get the idea. Let's look at this again. So, Ra'isa B'Shiva, you see amongst the captives a woman who was incredibly beautiful. Isha was Torah. You desirable to Isha, you want to take her as a wife. And they say, and you take her into your house. You take her into your house. Let's pause for a second. At what stage in a person's life generally do they have a house? Well, I know I only own a house when I get married. Normally, a person, certainly in those days, owns a house when they're married. He's married! That's how you can guarantee that she will cry for her mother and her father, no matter how horrible they were, because your wife, your Jewish wife, will make her life such an ongoing living Gehenna that no matter how bad her parents were, she would cry and she'd want to go back to them. Is the Alshich, what you promised to bring me back from the battle? This is the jewelry that I was supposed to be getting? You bring another woman, a non-Jewish woman, into the house? That is what I get? And the Alshich quotes a pasuk in Mishli. In Mishli it says, a pasuk, if you're interested in finding it, it's in Kof Zayin, and it's pasuk Tes Vov. Delef Torah B'yom Sagrir. A drip on a stormy day, drip of in a house hitting, the floor on a stormy day, the Ashes Madanim Mishtava. And a woman who is angry, a wife who is angry, it's identical. She will be upset, she won't let go, it will be continual like that dropping. She will make your life a living hell. And if she'll make your life a living hell, one thing is pretty sure. It won't be very nice for this woman she's brought into the house. And so says the Alshich. I'll maybe read a little bit to you because you have noticed by now, those who've been attending these shiurim online, that the Alshich has a sense of humor. So he says, remember we said before that Hashem is undoing all the effects, all the reality that got you into this situation in the first place? After the war, you succeeded, you were feeling so good about yourself. Not going to be feeling good about yourself now. You had a feeling of shalva, serenity, having survived the war, from the screams of the dead soldiers, from the screams of the soldiers threatening to kill you. Now there's peace and quiet as you sit on this hillside, surveying it all and grateful to have survived. And that feeling of serenity, if that was a contributing factor to you getting lost and forgetting your relationship with Hashem will reverse that serenity. You won't have too much serenity when your wife finds who you brought home from the battlefield to introduce her to. She'll live in your house, in the middle of your house, with your Jewish wife. So that you will bear and have to suffer the anger of a resentful and betrayed wife who will make you have experiences worse, Kashim, Milchomas Gog v'Magog, in the war of Gog and Magog. when she sees that you brought a non-Jewish woman from the war against idolaters into her house. Kitomer El Isha Shlasir has a Mazu Asa Bekir base. What are you talking about? What we brought into my house? Is this the present, the gift that you promised to bring me from the spoil of the battle? Who would be able to survive such pain, such moments of anguish that your wife is going to, your Jewish wife, is going to subject you to? If we put this all together, even though it does sound funny and rings all sorts of bells and mother-in-law jokes, etc., but the very important reality here, Hashem is Avinu Malkeinu in the month of Elul. Elul, of course, the letters Elul stand for Ani Ladoidi Bedoidi Li. I to my beloved is to me, says Hashem. The beloved is us. The beloved is you, his children. Avinu Malkeinu, as it said, read it just a few weeks ago in the Parsha. Boni Matem Hashem again. You are his children. And no father wants his child to get lost. Every father wants the child to come back again. So Hashem says, okay, if you want this woman, fine. It's just that there are certain conditions, and then you can have it. And those conditions are there in order to get his son back again. Straight after that, if I share my screen with you one last time, then it says, and if you ever doubted that Hashem has a sense of humor, now that we put together the Alshich's insight, this verse here, and if after all of this, and it'll be that you don't want to go through with the marriage and marry her after all, then she goes out to freedom with no strings attached whatsoever. You know, and if it's, I mean, if just perhaps after all this, you don't want to marry her, that's almost a smile shining from that posuk from Hashem to the Jewish people. He's doing his best to get us back again. That's why the Seder Teitze is the Seder of the Parsha that we're reading now in the month of Elul. It should be, if it was me, perhaps if it was you, just anger that you could have been betrayed. You could have betrayed me so badly. Hashem says no, because you're my son or you're my daughter. And I want you back again. Let me undo the circumstances that got us decoupled in the first place, so we can recouple. And that will be Ani Ladoidi, Ladoidi Li. I shall see you again next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and a wonderful Shabbos too.